Okay, very well. So this is going to be a tutorial about land management or recently called asset management. Okay, so if I use land management or asset management, is the same thing, it's just a recent name change. Um, so the idea behind the asset management is um, instead of PowerPeak using or picking inventory for production or to sell to a customer or whatever, PowerPeak is going to keep track of the inventory that was lent to a user, and then that user will have to return it later, to return it to the warehouse later. A typical example, real life example of this is a maintenance room, for instance, where if a mechanic needs a certain tool, they will actually take that tool, take it to the repair, and then they will have to return it after. Okay, and PowerPeak is going to keep track on the inventory that was lent, which user was lent to, basically keeps a tab on what that user has, or which inventory that user has. Okay. Okay, so that's the idea behind asset management. When we changed from land management to asset management, a couple of things changed. Not much, just a couple of options. We'll go over those. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need, and I already set up a couple of parts in here or materials. The first thing we need is a property. Okay, so under material property, okay, we need to have a property for assets, okay, and the basic idea here is under asset management, you need to have a managed asset, okay. I will talk about sales asset in a second, but for now let's keep it simple and just do a managed asset. Okay, keep in mind to use this option, you need to have the asset management and you have to have cost center. Okay, so you need to have um, cost center, and you need to have where is the asset management. I couldn't find it for some reason. Okay, so these two options need to be activated in your license. Okay, very well. So let's go back to our PowerPick. So we have the asset management, uh, manage manage asset. And then, of course, our wrench, which is a typical example of a part that it's really, or a material that should be used in management, in asset management. Um, the property of this wrench is an asset. Okay, very well. So nothing really crazy here, just a property for this part. So this part is still a normal part, can be picked, can be put away. The wrench can be put away, so you can do a manual put and or order put and add more wrenches to your inventory, but you cannot pick it anymore. So if I try to pick this wrench, it's going to tell me that I cannot add because this is an asset. Okay, very well. So property is the first thing you need to take care of. Then let's go to the options that we have under system configuration. And if you go under the asset tab, asset parameters, you only have three parameters and they are pretty straightforward. The cost center editing type can be either free text or can be choice. So uh, basically what this allows you to do is, I said before, the cost center is still a module that we have to add to this for this to work. So when you pick something that, like that wrench, for instance, you can either type in what you picked it for, or you can have just a drop-down menu with choices to tell you that we have to choose an option or where that material is going to. That can be a machine type, can be an area. If you set this up and you go to choice, then under cost center, you have the options tooling and finishing. So when I'm picking something, I can only choose between these two values. I cannot type my own values. Okay. Um, then the cost center is used or not. So some customers might say, I don't even need this. Okay, I just want to keep track on which materials are going to a user. So if the customer doesn't really have a use for it, you don't need to provide it. In my example, I'm going to make it compulsory. And restrict returns by user. This usually it's set to true because when I pick something, my name is John, I'm picking something, only John, only my user can return that, okay? If I set this to false, my colleague uh, Mike can then return this for me, okay? Probably you don't want to activate this, okay? So each user has to return their own materials. But again, this is flexible and can adapt if the user has a requirement that, okay, I want to allow other users to return inventory, okay? Very well. So let's save this for now. We can play with this a little bit later. Okay, so now under startup, and this is the main difference, is that now you have assets check-in and assets check-out. Okay, so if I want to get my wrench for a job, okay, I'm going to do an assets checkout. Okay, the material is 222. I'm going to put a quantity of 3. And as I said, the cost center, where I have to choose where this is going to, if for tooling or for finishing. I mean, I'll say tooling. It creates a task like a regular manual pick or put, and then you just do process. Nothing really different here. Tells you where to pick it from. Picking 3 wrenches, very well. Confirm. Okay, beautiful. Now let's say that for another job, okay, I need one more wrench. Okay, so I can, sorry, I muscle memory there. I can have another asset checkout, okay, and again, same asset, another wrench. Quantity, I'm just going to pick 1 this time, and again, I have to choose, let's do finishing this time, okay, and process. Okay, picks from the same location, nothing really different there, okay? So it now in stock, my current quantity went down from 9 to 5. Um, but if I go to reports and I go to assets on loan, okay, I can see all the assets that are out. And these are my wrenches, right? I pick 3 for tooling. This is the username and the date. You can add the date and time if you want to. And you have the quantity as well, and you have the cost center. So that's, again, the cost center. Some users don't really care about this. In my example, I'm adding, but you don't need to use cost center if you don't want to. Very well, okay? Now, again, to check in, so I'm going to return something, I can go to the asset check-in, and if I go to the binoculars here, I can choose which item am I returning, okay? So I can say, oh, I'm returning this one I took for finishing. I can just double click on it. Okay, quantity 1. By the way, it allows you to change the quantity. We'll talk about that in a second. But especially in the previous example that I had, if I took 3 and I'm done with 2 of them, I can return 2 and then still keep 1 out of the warehouse, okay? So I'm going to return the one that I have, process, okay? And it's going to go back as a return to the warehouse. All right. And now, if I'm still in the assets, if I click on the binoculars again, because I only have 1 item to be returned, it automatically fills it out. I don't have to pick it or to choose from the list because it's my only item. Okay. And as I was saying before, I pick 3. I can only return 1 if I want to, and I'll still have 2 in my tab, in my land inventory. Okay. So I can process this and I can confirm. Okay, and again, as I told you, I still have 2 that I still have to return. Now, a nice part about this, and let's go back to our assets on loan. Now I only have 1, and I'm an admin, so I can just do whatever I want. But one thing that admins can do, if they go to this list, is when I pick this, I picked it to tooling, okay? Let's say now that my user, they came back to me, hey, I had this wrench on tooling, but now there's another problem in finishing, and I'm going to actually transfer this to finishing, okay? So the admin or that person's boss can come here, double click, sorry, not double click, right click, and transfer the cost center. So now from tooling, I can move this to finishing, okay? And now I know that this wrench that was in tooling first, now is in finishing. Another thing is, let's say that during that repair, one of the wrenches just completely failed and broke, okay? Or any parts, right? So I can right click and do a quantity modification, okay? And I can say that from the two that I have in tooling, now I only have one, and now I have to tell the motive. So let's say that's a scrapping, and I can say damaged during repair. Okay, let's save this. Um, by the way, all of this is being saved in the history. Okay, so all these wrenches, by the way, and I can see what happened to this one. Um, that was a deviation of -1. And if I really want to know what happened, I have the date, I have the user, and I have the reason that for the scrapping. All right, very well. Okay, now let's imagine that another user logs in. Okay, so let's change this user, and John comes in. Okay, so John, if John, uh, if John tries to do a asset check-in, John can't do anything because John never really asked for or checked out any asset, right? The only person that got the asset was Telmo. And remember what I told you in the beginning. And I have a strict policy here where only the user that picked the item or checked out the item can return them. Okay, if if I want John to be able to return Telmo's tool, this has to be on false, okay? I'm not going to do that. But now John can check out his own wrench. I have to pick a cost center. And there it goes, works the same way. And now, if I want to check in, let's save this. Okay, refresh. It was open from before. There you go. I can let me close this because it's still open from before. It needs to be refreshed. So check in, and there you go. So my only asset was the 222, so automatically filled it out, and I can now process this if I want to check in. Okay. A last couple of things about this. I don't want to make this a super long video, and it's getting there. Under management, material property, I spoke earlier that I was going to tell you about the sales asset. So let's say that on top of using wrenches for repairs, I also sell wrenches. Okay, so if I want to allow this item to be picked as a manual pick or order pick as well, I set this setting so PowerPick on top of allowing me to do a asset check-in or check-out will also allow me to do a manual pick. So now if I want to pick a wrench to sell to a customer, for instance, I can do that. So I can put one, let's do two. Now the cost center is optional because again, this is a manual pick. It's not really something mandatory. but now I have this option. Now that's a sales item. Okay. Don't know how often this will happen because probably don't want to sell use things. But I mean, this could be used for other things, right? If you want just to pick one, but you don't want really to return it later, you can allow assets to be delivered or to be picked as a manual pick or an order pick by activating the sales asset. Okay. The last thing I want to show you about this, and hopefully you can stop listening to me, is administration, and you have the asset management commands. Right now, you can disable here the possibility for a user to do a cost center transfer or a quantity modification, as I showed you in the reporting, right? In this reporting here. If you want to prevent me from changing the cost center or change the quantity. Actually, John can't do it. My current user can't do a quantity modification. Let's go check John. Yeah, see, John cannot do a quantity modification. That's why I don't have that option. I can do a cost center transfer. So you probably want to give these two options to admins only, not to everybody. Okay, I think this covers it. It was a quick review on asset management. Have fun.